right. Time for us to proceed on. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Welcome to James's senior speech. There's so much excitement. So if you would silence your phones and make sure you get the sign-up sheet covered so that James knows who it is at his senior speech, that would be great. James, I'm getting a call. Okay. Hello? It's my POV moment here. Oh, I'm being told this is the last senior speech for the class of 2025. Still doesn't count as POV. All right. Let's settle now. James. James has a sincere interest in so many things. We could be having a discussion about a topic, and in response to a peripheral comment I make, he's like, yeah, let's discuss more of that. And then we could end up talking about a handful of related topics before coming to conclusion on any of them and running out of time. James, being a unique thinker, was clear from his first month on campus. Here are a few quotes from his personal identity paper from freshman Bible class. I disagree with people most of the time. He did mention you guys having great conversations, Josh. I have a fear that nothing means anything. If you can't do something by yourself, it's not worth doing with other people. In my comments on his paper, I likened his writing to the disparate musings of an intellectual vagabond. I have always appreciated James's willingness to go outside of the box, even if that means confusing almost everyone, including sometimes himself. But this is all part of James' relentless pursuit of truth and self-improvement. One month he's joining the track team or the cross-country team. The next he's visiting a mosque to discuss the Quran with the imam. Oh, he has a YouTube channel. Sure, we can discuss the meaning of life between classes. Now you want to have your head shaved in chapel? Lots of things going on with James. Speaking of chapel, through it all, he was always the one to be ready to answer my questions from the audience. Originally, I think you were wondering why no one else spoke up. Then you were wondering why no one else knew the answers. And then you were just like, you know what? I'll be the guy who answers the questions, and that you were. James, as an intellectual vagabond, you may not always feel at home in normal high school conversation and interests, but you have definitely found a home here at Doc. We have come to embrace your uniqueness in all of its glory, and I believe that this has allowed you to shine. You are truly one of a kind, and you'll be greatly missed. So we look forward to hearing your musings for one last time. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Mr. Benner. It sounds like you just summed up my entire speech. So now I get to lay out the details. Your class encouraged me to explore ideas and ask thought-provoking questions. I'll miss speaking up from the audience during chapel to answer your questions. My journey at Doc has been marked by overcoming challenges and finding where I belong. As an incoming freshman, I was not the person I am today. I had known some people from joining Doc in 8th grade, but my vision of what could happen in high school was not all there. I was playing soccer, and the memories of talking to Mr. Moyer and lifting weights are fresh in my memory. I was all ready to start school, and then turned out to be as confused as ever, even asking the other person on my bus where I should go. This place felt like a maze. I found my way to English class with Jacob, Isaiah, and Braden. We stood there with looks of unknown, and that is how it began. Out of all the new faces, one stood out the most. This was Josh Wangjia. For the next 2 years, we'd have the most fiery lunch conversations and ask questions to teachers. Nobody else could tolerate my wacky questions or be willing to dive into any topic, no matter how far out. The main thing about honors biology and geometry was the projects. We covered everything related to what DNA is and debated whether viruses are alive. Geometry wasn't challenging, as math has been my comfort zone. This is where we formed the basis of finding a shape's area and angles. Outside the classroom, I learned a lot from my mistakes on defense with Adam Shepard during soccer season. Shortly after soccer ended, I heard some students discussing a basketball game. I experienced the energy of soccer student sections, and I figured I could rally around the basketball team in a similar way. I arrived on time and sat by myself, feeling shy, but the older students called me over. Those basketball games became meaningful to me, bringing school spirit to life and uniting everyone. Mr. Benner's Bible class opened my eyes to a whole new world. I sit here in chapel wondering how people could believe these things when they share a testimony in chapel. That soon changed with the solid introduction that his class was. Logan Sell was blown away by the statements I'd be whispering sitting next to him. Mr. Benners established the daily James quote out of this. Too bad they weren't written down. He went on to comment, "Intellectual vagabond," on a paper I wrote. It is the first comment from a teacher that truly resonated with my aspirations. We learned many things that wouldn't sink in for a few years. The baseball season was highly anticipated. The only problem was there wasn't a coach. They solved this by hiring a man I'd already known, Joe Massio. We had a few preseason practices, and at one, I was told by a senior, "You see Braden Kratz? You are better than him. He will not play." This was false. They were just trying to hype me up. Cold winds were all over in my first chance at the plate. After stepping into the box, I got a fastball directly at my right leg. I ran to the base and high-fived the coach because nothing can hurt me. It may seem like I'm most committed to baseball, but my actions often say otherwise. Something always seems to pull me away from the game I love. During my freshman year, it was the play. The director reached out after hearing about my interest, and I had to juggle baseball and theater carefully. I played Donald, occasionally being called that offstage by friends. I wore suspenders, played the accordion, and fully embraced acting. A pivotal moment was when David Michelle told me not to quit, which gave me lasting confidence. A standout moment was completing the multi-genre project in English. I focused on pizza, including an interview with Vinny from Tony's Pizza Palace and sharing a homemade pizza with my class. Freshman year helped me settle into the routine and experience a variety of memorable events. No longer being a freshman, many opportunities would arise as a sophomore. My freshman self was just the tip of the iceberg. Mr. Benner was asking for volunteers to share their summer in chapel. I decided to talk about my family's trip to France. That was my only plan. Standing on stage, I was sweating and stuttering. Afterward, I got so many compliments. Even though it wasn't my best, I still said thank you. That moment inspired me to keep sharing, realizing people valued growth more than perfection. Before my chapel appearance, I sought Mr. Benner's help in connecting my experience to something spiritual. In no time, I had Mr. King for the first time, and his ability to relate lessons to volleyball made his class engaging. Through his teaching, I realized that faith centers on how one views Jesus, which inspired me to continue exploring the Gospels. At this point, I was also getting a glimpse into leadership with JV soccer. I got some playing time when varsity was dominating the other team. Early in the season, Coach Schreiber taught me an important lesson on teamwork. I misplayed the ball during a scrimmage, which led to a goal. In the huddle, I admitted, That goal was my fault. He responded, James, no, this is a team sport. We all share responsibility. That moment taught me to focus on collective effort instead of individual mistakes. This season helped me connect with seniors and showed me the value of friends who will give advice. I'm not a fan of lunch, but this year I enjoyed playing stickball. Using the time for baseball is always worthwhile. In English, we read The Great Gatsby, the only classic I truly enjoyed because of its many layers and perspectives. Algebra came easily, and exploring complex numbers stood out as a fascinating mystery. Zeke Longacre persuaded me to do bowling, which was the biggest outlier in high school. I scored 40 in the first game and raised my average to 130 with lots of focus. Near the end of the season, I had 5 clean frames and needed to strike out in the 10th to finish strong. I rolled the ball, the pins fell, and I scored a 198. It was so satisfying. Eric Kratz emphasized the importance of regular off-season practices after becoming our baseball coach. That wasn't possible without a batting cage. We built it on a Saturday, and it has been key to our successes. In the midst of all this, Mrs. Sensenig recruited me for choir. She heard me singing backstage while working stage crew at the musical. My schedule was changed because she always needs more singers. Hitting the right notes was tough, but choir led to hosting a kid from Germany and even joining them on a field trip. The baseball lineup this year was the strongest I've ever been a part of. I started a few games and went 5 for 5 against TCA. I pitched against Delco in districts, and our energy was unmatched to beat Faith to win the district championship. We advanced to the state semifinals where we played our best but ultimately fell short. Despite the loss, the journey was unforgettable. Looking back, I'd be a sophomore again in a heartbeat. Going into junior year, I knew AP Physics would be a big deal, but it got bigger once Mrs. Mass started talking. I was cooked as soon as we started projectile motion. I had to reframe my whole way of thinking. On the first test, I got an 11 out of 30. This was unbelievable, but I knew it could change. As a leader on the JV soccer team again, I could feel us having more chemistry. We were together on every play. I had a lot of fun running all over for corner kicks. I placed it right in front of the net at an away game, and Jarius tapped it in for the goal. I was so proud to see that. Our playoff game was against Jenkintown. Before it, we had a rondo with the other JV guys. Mason went for the ball after I kicked it out. While my attention was somewhere else, he beamed it at my head. The next few minutes were blurry as I went over to Ryan to check me out. My one objective was perfect attendance. That went out the window when he said I had a concussion. I missed most of Mrs. Kennel's computer science class because of my headaches. I struggled to explain how I felt. But during that time, I met a person who would become a best friend, Jay Howe. I'm not sure exactly how we met, but I'm grateful for every moment. He became my gateway to Chinese culture through sharing of stories and playing Chinese poker at lunch. I also took him to a Phillies game, which was a great experience. I also met Eddie Nealman during this time, during my concussion. We'd meet in Rosenberger during lunch. I originally went there to get away from the cafeteria noise, but it grew into a great friendship. The social issues project, musical, and nervousness of doing stand-up soon gave me lots to focus on. I was hesitant to do Arts Day. Then Danny Emmer and some others shouted, "James, you should do stand-up comedy. It would be so funny, and we'd win." Yes, people think I'm funny. I like comedy, but rehearsing an act for the stage was a new challenge. Alex Brown joined in last minute. I ended up telling a story that went back to the 80s, and people loved it. This fit perfectly with my role in the musical since I was mostly separate from the music. I became known for backwards. and the one-liner was mastered. I presented on vaping for social issues. It sparked a passion in me for researching overlooked health issues. Although I had enjoyed being in the choir, my time as a singer came to a close as Mrs. Sensenay called me to her room. The conversation was brief, and I was told I was simply not good enough to be in touring choir. Though understandable, I appreciated her extending my invitation to the Europe trip. We come back to AP Physics, and I had a D, the worst grade of my life. I almost quit. There was no light at the end of the tunnel, but I was encouraged to persevere. I began to wake up early for homework, and things started to make sense. It was hard picking up gravity, so luckily we began momentum, which was easier. Around this time, I told Aubrey Clemmer I wanted to shave my head. She said it could happen in chapel if Mr. Benner approved. They did all the preparation and made cutting my hair the prize. I would have called you crazy if you told me the whole school would watch my haircut. But how people reacted motivated me to keep being weird, because I will take a crazy story to tell over anything. We lost some seniors in baseball, but new faces like Ethan and Eddie kept our squad powerful. Eric sent me hundreds of videos on Twitter about the lefty pickoff move. They didn't help as much as I thought. I got it down from Jimmy's advice one practice, and nobody has been safe on the base paths since. Not even Nativity BVM's leadoff hitter yesterday. What was helpful from Twitter was a book titled The Mental ABCs of Pitching. After reading it, the ideas have been in my head since. This was displayed when we played Faith. We didn't walk away with a win, but I fought for every out. Bible with Mr. King was every day. Outside of learning Mennonite origins and our school's values, I was particularly fascinated by the lifestyle of the Hutterites in South Dakota. In the final project, I openly shared my interest in Islam. My heart was racing due to the vulnerability that was revealed. Ultimately, the message resonated with me more than anything else. I started looking for deeper truth, following my exit from the Quaker meeting. I also found it dopaminergic in a concerning way. I felt that the Muslim perspective isn't heard enough, especially because of what is happening in Palestine. Regardless, I continued to find that I put myself in control too much and not giving up to a higher power. The AP Physics test can't go unnoticed. Mrs. Mass advised us not to study the night before, but I did it anyway. My goal of scoring a 4 was achieved, so there is no complaints. Afterward, while I was leaving school, I ran into Ryland Purnell during a day of speeches. He stopped to give me the cross-country coach's phone number. This small but thoughtful gesture set me on a path I wouldn't have imagined. I did the unthinkable of switching sports. I've been running all year, and this is my passion. I missed preseason from being up in Vermont with my family, but I was still dedicated enough to drive to the track and do the daily workout. We got the sad news that my grandpa had passed away. His last words, "Keep up the hard work," have stuck with me. I emailed Mr. Moyer, letting him know I'd be leaving the soccer team. That didn't stop him from writing me a letter of recommendation. I got to know Coach File over the summer, so there were no introductions needed. The focus was always on a group mindset when we weren't running, even though it seemed so individualistic. I ran a 19-minute, 11-second 5K at the first meet. I noticed my original goal of 19 minutes could easily be done. I set a standard that had to be met every day. The first time at Tyler State Park proved to be highly competitive. I got a good start and found my pace. Coach Byrne was cheering me as I turned the corner with 100 meters to go. Another guy was on my side, and I wasn't going to let him beat me. I pumped my arms and burst to the finish line. Things had plateaued, but still lots of hope as we headed into districts. I woke up the day of districts and saw a text from Coach Byrne. No, actually, it was a band message. It said, "If you feel good, you can surprise people." I was 2 places behind Aaron in the projections. Being at Lehigh University before helped because I knew where I was. As I went into the corn, File yelled, saying to stay in this place. Going downhill, eyes on the finish, 3 others clustered. The season depending on this, I had no choice but to surge forward. I got a PR in the and a spot in the state championship, but it could have been very different. The friends and progress were what it was really about. I made the most of a single season as a runner. I had calculus for math, and knowing some of it coming in, derivatives were straightforward. The power rule was easy to begin with, but it got more challenging. 100% of my brain was needed for success. Global errors was also enjoyable. It balanced openness with structure, creating an environment that encouraged meaningful discussion and thoughtful reflection. I continued to have many faith questions. These questions don't have one answer, depending on who you ask. I was going to the mosque and reading the Quran after reading the Quran over the summer. It brought me meaning, and I saw genuine faith in those who I met. I felt I took this too quickly, treating life as a sprint, not the marathon that it is. I leaned further into the Christian atmosphere of our school, causing me to question my authenticity. Exploring the Baha'i faith made me reflect on what could hold truth. I realized I often focused on proving what is true over embracing faith itself, which truly is more important. A belief I did develop this year is that free will does not exist. Running the clothing drive as a senator showed me how small efforts can create real impact. It was great seeing our work help the community. Ceramics with Mr. Schwartz taught me a lot. I enjoyed art and wish I had taken more classes. It taught me patience and communication. These experiences reminded me that learning happens in many ways. I planned a bigger skit for Arts Day, but it fell through, so I ran it back with Alex. I answered questions out of hat. The laughs were big, and I was sad it couldn't happen once I left the stage. Thank you, Alex Brown, for making this possible. I joined the musical again, and the narrative wasn't clear. It still gave me a chance to learn dances. Kansas City was so fire each time we did it. Every small detail made me want to keep doing theater. I wanted to avoid the news after the election, but I had AP government. We never knew what conversations would come up. I memorized the amendments and studied important parts of American government. It felt easier than it really was, but it reminded me how often we encounter politics without being truly informed. School ending is signaled by baseball season starting each year. This season has felt most significant as it showed me the elevated responsibilities of being a senior. I fixed my hitting mistakes and locked down a spot in the lineup. Our vibes as a group were nothing like I've ever seen. A slow start did not stop us from being flexible. Everything led us to winning districts last week and going back to states, but disappointingly losing the game yesterday. As time moves on, so will I. That's why I'll be going to the University of Pittsburgh to study engineering. Going to school here has been a perfect microcosm of what life should be. You couldn't doubt a smile being on my face, whether I'm in the spotlight or the shadow. I'm thankful to my parents for packing lunches, driving me everywhere, and supporting me every step of the way. Thanks to teachers and coaches who cultivated a space for growth. Thank you to everyone who made me feel at home. Thanks to God for waking me up every morning. Thank you for being here.